I think I don't think I really knew who Jesus was at all. My nan went to church very regularly, so had some small experience of church as a youngster, but I think it was just a religion. It's just where old people went on a Sunday, and didn't understand it at all. Didn't see it as anything personal to an individual. Just a way of keeping people quiet, doing as they were told, having some rules. Yeah. But then when Jesus comes in, it changes things. Turns your life all around. And it's nothing like what you thought. So, I think Jesus had his hand on my life, all of my life. I think, and even in his word, he says that he'll have us, before we was born, that he knew us. And so he's always been over my life. But yeah, life was pretty tough as a kid for me, emotionally, physically, mentally. Not having mum and dad together. Ended up living with dad, which was quite unusual back in the 70s. And then bullied through school, got in trouble with the police, got in trouble with my dad, got in trouble a lot, and then ended up running away to try and live with my mum. And that didn't work out either, got in trouble there, went through some traumatic experiences around the age of 14, 15, which caused a lot of problems later on in life, and struggles. Then mum and dad didn't want to know anymore. I was too much hard work, and I don't blame them. I was 16, really difficult, head all over the place, confused about life. So I was on the streets, living under bridges and what have you, and sleeping rough, stealing from shops for food. Very solitary, just me, for a long time. And met up with some people, ended up getting in a bit of trouble, too much trouble, and ended up in prison. That was 3 years of life there. And then when I got out, lived in London for a while, all with people who got out of prison as well. So not really a good environment to try and make any changes, and I don't think I was in a place to change. Couldn't even see a reason to change. It's just life was chaos. Everything was chaotic. Got involved in lots of different drugs at the time. Rave scene up in London. I thought I was having a good time, but actually I was falling apart massively inside. And after about 6 months of living in London, in squats in different places, we squatted in a library in the East End of London for a while. It just got really crazy. Ended up owing some drug dealers lots of money. So I thought I'd leave. I thought I'd try and repair some relationships with my parents. So first went to my mum's, and she didn't really want to know, wouldn't let me in the house. So went to my dad's. He lived about 60 miles away. This is all down in Kent. He lived in Dover, or near Dover, in a place called Deal, and went there, and he wouldn't even entertain me at the front door. Ended up going to Dover, met up with some guy there, and he was going to Europe, so I thought, right, that's it, I'm off. We'll leave this country, leave everything behind, start afresh somewhere else. And we got you could, back in the day then, you could get a day pass. You didn't need a passport, you could just get a day ticket to go to France. And ended up staying out there for 6 weeks. Absolutely no money, no passport, no food. begging on the streets through Europe, France, Belgium, Holland, back down into the south of France. By the end of the 6 weeks, I was absolutely exhausted. I didn't really know what was going on with my life at all. My friend the guy I'd met, not really a close friend, and somebody I'd met, but he was going down to Spain. I didn't really want to go any further. I needed to get back to the UK. I felt there'd be some security to come back to, some sort of safety net. Couldn't understand what everybody was speaking in a foreign language. So he went his way, and I was at a train station in the south of France. And I did call out to God to get me home, because I didn't know how that could happen. But that wasn't because I knew him, it was just, God help me. Like we all do when we're in, when things get tough. God help me, I'm in dire straits. And at that point I got on a train. It was late at night. I ended up getting on the wrong train actually, and ended up in northern Spain, which wasn't helpful at all. But from that point onwards, got onto trains and wasn't stopped once. On several trains, slept on the trains, got up to Paris. Needed to get on the metro, the underground, which you need a ticket for, and just didn't have any help. So sat outside the train station, and somebody came up and saw that I was in a bit of a mess. Asked me what was going on. I explained my situation, and yeah, they bought my ticket, and they bought my onward ticket to Calais as well. So they, really blessed by those people. Bought me food, put me on the underground, sent me in all the right directions, and then got to Calais, and it was like, I'm not going to get across this water. I've got, you can walk or get trains or hitchhike across land, but cross water, how are you going to get across the water? I don't even have a passport. So I sat in the foot passenger waiting area. I just cried my eyes out. It was just a mess. Like 21 years old at that point. And this group came in, like, there was about 16 of them, 12, 16 guys. They was all like day trippers, and they came in. They'd gone over to France to get booze or fags or whatever. And a couple came over to me, could see me crying. It was like, what's the matter? Explained my situation again. He was like, it's crazy, how are we going to get out of this? How are we going to resolve this? Look, there's a big group of us. We could try and get you just mingle amongst us, and maybe we'll get through. Like, this is crazy, that's not going to happen. But I don't know. I'm blessed by God. Actually, just being in that group, we then got onto a little bus that took us to the ferry. And they was counting heads as we was getting on as well. I don't know, and it amazes me to this day. But got onto the ferry, got over to Dover, and then at Dover there's like obviously passport control. I went to walk past it. I thought, I'm just going to walk past it. Nothing's going to happen here. Everything's been like amazing so far. And I got stopped there, but I was a British citizen, so they had to let me back in after a few questions. The people that had helped me cross over waited for me to come out from the questioning. They was like, where are you going? I was like, well, I don't really know. I suppose I'll have to go back to London, which would have been horrific. I think, I was in a lot of trouble up there, and I think that probably would have been the end of physical life had I actually made it back to London. But they was like, oh, look, we live in London, we're going there anyway, so we'll give you a lift. I was like, wow, okay. But on the way from Dover to London is, on the motorway, there's a turn-in where you can go off, where it would have ended up back in my hometown. And as we was coming up to it, I was like, look, I'll just get off here. Thanks, amazing, thank you very much. And then walked into Sittingbourne, which is near my hometown. And it was in the evening, and I was like, there was nothing, everything was shut. I didn't have anything. at all. So I just went and slept in a graveyard, actually. And the following morning, it was like, well, I don't even know what I'm going to do. Where do you go from here? You know, your parents don't want to know. The life that you lived is destroying you. What do you do? So I walked up through the high street, and as I got to the end of the high street, there was a little coffee shop that was offering free teas and coffees and toast and a warm welcome. And it was a Christian coffee shop. Some guys from a local Baptist church, they'd opened it up, was just helping people out in struggles. And I went in there, started talking to the people and explaining, you know, what had happened and what had been going on. And it was like, God's brought you here. God's brought you to this moment. He brought you back from Europe. And he's brought you here this morning. And he wants you to give your life to him. And I didn't have anywhere else to go. I didn't have anywhere else I could go. So that morning, prayed a prayer with a couple of people, sat at a little coffee table, asking Jesus to come into my life. And something changed, something massively changed. But my circumstances didn't really change. But something changed inside of me. And it's not until years later that you recognise how those changes come about or what they've done. But God came into my life at that point. As I look back now, He's definitely come into my life. He was over my life, but then he was in my life. And it became something very different. That was this year, that's 33 years ago. That happened. Which oddly enough is how long Jesus was on the earth for as well. And I wasted so many of those years as well. So got saved, started going to church, doing prayer walks in the street, doing all the things, and sort of evangelising in our local town. Really thought, it's great, it's amazing. Met a woman down there. We got married. Thought we'd settled down and everything was going okay. But I had so much stuff, so much sort of trauma, so much pain, so much guilt and shame that I was carrying around. And I just I took this gift from God and thought that was just it. But actually, God wanted to then do some work. You know, He wanted to bring freedom, and that freedom needed to come by removing some things and doing some work. And so I really struggled with that. And marriage at the time, that then got a little bit rocky. Problems started occurring, and I took my eyes off of what Jesus wanted to do. And I think I didn't recognise fully what God was offering. And I had lots of learning to do. So we ended up splitting up. And I come to move, met up with a guy in a hostel where I was staying after we'd split up, and he was coming to Bristol. And he asked if I wanted to come. I was like, well, I've got nothing else to do here. It's all going back to having nothing. It's all, homelessness again. Moved to Bristol and started making a life in Bristol. Met a partner in Bristol, had 3 kids. And I think what was changing was that actually God had softened my heart. He'd shown me what love actually was, and that He was continually feeding me His love and showing me how to love others. So when I came to Bristol, there was more of a gentleness around me, more of a willingness to learn. But then even then it was in and out of churches. For 6 months you'd go to church, and then it'd be like a year where I wasn't. drugs were still a problem, so smoking cannabis, drinking a lot, and it was a really sort of difficult time. But again, God was, to me now looking in hindsight, God made a promise, and I can honestly say in 33 years he's never broke that promise. He kept it, and when he saved me, he'd already made that promise. He was going to bring me out, but I had to do some work as well, and it's taken me best part of 33 years to work through a lot of those things. A lot of the guilt and the shame of my youth, and some of the things that I'd done when I was an adult, bad decisions that I made, looking for the wrong kind of love. There's so many mistakes were made, but God in his love never gives up. He never lets you go, and he keeps calling you back. And in the last 18 months, right, me and my now partner, we've been together nearly nine years, nearly 10 years, and we was on the verge of splitting up. But after a load of events, traumatic events and stuff that the family had gone through, my partner ended up moving to a place in Yate, got a brand new house in Yate, and the next door neighbours were Christians. They came next door, came to us to introduce themselves. There was a Bible on the side because we hadn't put it away yet. And they was like, "Oh, you're Christians." I was like, "That's a bit of a stretch." But, you know, I believe in God. Been a long time since being in church. And then he was like, "Oh, you should come to our church." I was like, "Yeah, maybe." And this went on for a few weeks. And they even said that they'd been praying for Christians to move in next door. So I really felt, actually, again, hindsight tells you that God puts people in places. They'd moved into the new house next door. They was praying for Christians to move in. We weren't, you know, like the word Christians at the time, but God had a plan. And that's always how it works out, you know, that God's going to bring people together and relationships get built, and he brings about his purposes. Which is always to bring his children home. Started watching a couple of the YouTube videos from Hillfields. They really started speaking to me about forgiveness, about forgiving myself, about letting go, about forgiving others that may have been involved in some of my thinking and the way that I'd sort of perceived myself when I was younger, which led to some of the decisions that I make. So just letting go and giving it back to God. There was quite a few hard things in the last 18 months, quite a few hard things to let go of guilt and shame. But God said that I make you free, and he does. He brings out freedom. And so, yeah, it's now 18 months down the road. Katie, my partner, and I ended up getting married. Katie gave her life to Jesus. My stepdaughter's given her life. Our little daughter, Grace, she's 7. She worships God. Amazing. She's so close to him a lot of the time. My mother-in-law gave her life to Jesus. And we're moving forward, and God's in everything, and he's still doing what he promised 33 years ago. And I'll never leave you or forsake you, and we're moving with Jesus today. And I think moving forward that he's got other plans as well, and there's a reason for all of these things that have taken place, for all the darkness. Like, to me, it's a little bit like, it's a bit of sort of the Moses story in the, like, your slavery of my youth, and then sort of Jesus plucked me out of the slavery, but then I went into the wilderness for a long time of trying to work things out and doing things myself, and then sort of Jesus coming, oh, you can't do it yourself, Mark, let me do it, and fighting, wrestling with God all the time. And now I don't know what's next, actually. I don't know what God's plans are, and that's okay, because I know he's got me. And I know out of this whole life that I've lived, and it has been horrific at times, but I have never known the love, the patience, and the faithfulness that I have in God, that have given to me from him, that even when I'm thinking that it's all like, oh, this is crazy, how's this going to work out? And then next thing you know, something comes along and God sorts it out. So, yeah, that's my journey so far, I suppose, really. There's lots of bits to it, and there's lots of testimonies in amongst it. Like I said, some really beautiful moments, some really hard moments, but they're beautiful as well, because they bring that freedom, they bring better understanding of who God is. And like I was reading the other day, like in Luke, and Peter said to Jesus, he said, like, where would we go? We've got nowhere else to go. We know who you are, so there's nowhere we can run to. And I think I've got to that point in life now where I know Jesus is who he is. I know God is who he is, our Father in heaven, and there's nowhere I can go. It wouldn't matter how far I run, he's going to be right there. So I need to just be with him and spend time with him and see what he does and enjoy that, be a part of his great plans, whatever they may be. And that's it.